Welcome to the Trump Breaking News Network, your daily source for up-to-the-minute Trump news. Join us today and every day. Here's today's news.
This is TBNN.
We interrupt this video to bring you a special announcement. We will continue with your video after this short announcement. There is a massive boycott with YouTube and its advertisers happening right now. This boycott threatens our existence, as well as the entire YouTube channel database. You can do a search on Google to confirm this boycott. We urge you to help by supporting our channel with a $1 donation, just $1, to help offset our growing expenses. Our staff is working diligently to keep you informed and up to date on events and intel that you have grown accustomed to receiving. Our staff produce over 70 videos on a daily basis in English and in Spanish. This is a tremendous undertaking. This is why we use a computerized voice, because of the massive amount of information we provide for you. We accept PayPal donations, and our donation link is below in our description. When the boycott is over, we'll let you know. This is a serious situation for YouTube and its advertisers. If you appreciate our channel and the intel that we provide for you, then please consider this much-needed $1 donation. I want to personally thank you in advance for your support. Victory of the light. And now, here is your scheduled video.
Still no arrests as the one-year anniversary of Prince's death nears, but search warrants could be unsealed today. Friday marks the one-year anniversary of Prince's death. The musician died of an overdose of fentanyl, a synthetic drug 50 times more powerful than heroin. Dozens of counterfeit pills were found in a search of Prince's Paisley Park estate in Minnesota, including at least one that tested positive for fentanyl. Yet authorities still don't know the origin of those drugs, and there has been no indication that they are poised to hold anyone responsible anytime soon. Some information may be revealed on Monday when search warrants executed by local authorities are due to be unsealed. One key figure investigators want to interview is Kirk Johnson, a longtime drummer for Prince and the estate manager at Paisley Park. So far, Johnson hasn't spoken to federal prosecutors. Prince's physician, Dr. Michael Todd Schulenberg, also hasn't spoken to investigators since an initial interview right after the singer's body was found. It's been nearly a year since Prince died from an accidental drug overdose at his suburban Minneapolis recording studio and estate, yet investigators still haven't interviewed a key associate or asked a grand jury to consider whether criminal charges are warranted, according to an official with knowledge of the investigation. Prince was 57 when he was found alone and unresponsive in an elevator at his Paisley Park home on April 21. His death shocked fans and led to tributes worldwide. News that he died of an overdose of fentanyl, a synthetic drug 50 times more powerful than heroin, surprised and saddened those who knew him as someone with a reputation for clean living. Friday marks the one-year anniversary of Prince's death, but there still have been no arrests in the case +5. Friday marks the one-year anniversary of Prince's death, but there still have been no arrests in the case. Dozens of counterfeit pills were found in a search of Paisley Park, including at least one that tested positive for fentanyl. Yet authorities still don't know the origin of those drugs, and there has been no indication that they are poised to hold anyone responsible anytime soon. Investigators' actions in the hours immediately after his death aren't entirely known, and search warrants, aside from one that was accidentally and briefly made public, have been sealed. The search warrant that was briefly public notes that first responders started CPR on Prince before determining he was dead. Authorities conducted a second search more than 2 weeks after Prince died and recovered more evidence, including many of the counterfeit pills, the official said. Some information may be revealed on Monday when search warrants executed by local authorities, likely including one from the first search of Paisley Park, are due to be unsealed. Criminal justice experts say the slow pace of the investigation doesn't necessarily mean it's in trouble or that no one will ever be charged. They cite the complexity of tracking illegally obtained pills, the need to be sure before they issue subpoenas, and the high stakes for investigators and prosecutors, who don't want to suffer an embarrassing defeat in a high-profile trial. Federal prosecutors, especially, do not like to lose, said Gal Pisitsky, a Chicago-based criminal lawyer. That is why they can take so long. One key figure investigators want to interview is Kirk Johnson, a longtime drummer for Prince and the estate manager at Paisley Park who was among those who discovered the musician's body. Johnson also was with Prince 6 days earlier when he fell ill on a flight home from a performance in Atlanta and had to be revived with 2 doses of an opioid antidote. One key figure investigators want to interview is Kirk Johnson, a longtime drummer for Prince and the estate manager at Paisley Park. So far, Johnson hasn't spoken to federal prosecutors. Prince's physician, Dr. Michael Todd Schulenberg, also hasn't spoken to investigators since an initial interview right after the singer's body was found. +5. 2 figures that authorities want to interview are Kirk Johnson, left, Prince's longtime drummer and estate manager, and his physician, Dr. Michael Todd Schulenberg, right. Prince's death ruled accidental overdose of opiate painkillers. Experts say it's natural authorities would want to speak with Johnson, given his proximity to Prince. But Johnson hasn't talked to federal prosecutors, according to the official with knowledge of the investigation, who spoke to the Associated Press on the condition of anonymity because the investigation is ongoing. While authorities have the power to ask a grand jury to investigate and issue subpoenas for testimony, that step hasn't been taken, the official said. Johnson's attorney, F. Clayton Tyler, confirmed that his client hasn't been subpoenaed. He would not confirm whether Johnson refused to speak with authorities since an initial interview with detectives in the hours after Prince's death. Johnson declined to talk to the AP. When pressed in a recent CBS interview to talk about Prince's final days, Johnson pointed to his head and said, "Kirk has a vault. Right here. It's never gonna be unlocked." The official told the AP that investigators also haven't talked with Dr. Michael Todd Schulenberg since an initial interview after Prince's body was found. Schulenberg, who saw Prince on April 7 and again the day before his death, told a Carver County Sheriff's detective he had ordered tests and prescribed medications for the musician. Those tests and medications haven't been disclosed. The musician died of an overdose of fentanyl, a synthetic drug 50 times more powerful than heroin. Above, a memorial set up outside of his Paisley Park estate in Minnesota on April 21, 2016. +5. The musician died of an overdose of fentanyl, a synthetic drug 50 times more powerful than heroin. Above, a memorial set up outside of his Paisley Park estate in Minnesota on April 21, 2016. New information about the case is set to be released on Monday, as search warrants are unsealed. Above, Paisley Park on April 21, 2016. +5. New information about the case is set to be released on Monday, as search warrants are unsealed. Above, Paisley Park on April 21, 2016. In memory of legendary performer Prince 1958–2016. Schulenberg's attorney, Amy Connors, confirmed that her client hasn't had any more requests from authorities. That some Prince confidants or doctors haven't been interviewed shouldn't necessarily raise red flags, Pisitsky said. Prosecutors typically want to be armed with enough incriminating evidence to put an interviewee on the spot, he said. They want to show a suspect that, even though there might be holes in the evidence, they have enough to make it look like they have you dead to center, he said. Baywatch star Jeremy Jackson sentenced to 270 days in L.A. Ugly Hemingway's letter to Marlene Dietrich in which he. Tearful Boston Celtics star Isaiah Thomas returns to the "I would love to have kids," Prince Harry says he is now. Jeff Kramer, a former federal prosecutor in Chicago, said subpoenas aren't always the best tool. A person with useful information can exercise their right against self-incrimination if brought before a grand jury, and at that point the only way to get them to talk is to offer immunity. The last thing law enforcement wants to do is to potentially have to immunize somebody who could be the only target of the investigation, Kramer said. At that point, there's no going back, so chances are they are still running down some leads before coming to that fateful decision. Kramer said investigators are likely trying to uncover everything they can, and they need to get the drugs into a suspect's hands, either through a paper trail or witnesses. He said a year isn't an unreasonable length of time for the investigation. If questions remain 6 months from now, however, he said he'd question what law enforcement is doing. Investigators have said little about the case over the last year, other than it is active. They have explored whether doctors illegally prescribed opioids that were meant to go to Prince and whether the fentanyl that killed him came from a black market source online or on the street. The official said the case has taken investigators to Illinois and California, as authorities have interviewed friends, family and any potential witnesses, including the flight crew and hospital staff members who were present when Prince overdosed on a plane. They've also searched cell phone records, medical records and computers. Most fatal opioid overdoses that are investigated never lead to criminal charges, said Kerry Harvey, a former U.S. attorney for Eastern Kentucky who made prosecuting such cases a high priority. A common problem is that evidence gets destroyed by first responders focused on saving a life. It's not clear whether this is a problem in Prince's case.
That's the news. Join us here every day. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell. See you next time.
This is TBNN.